Morning, everyone, and welcome to the MRC ESG Guidelines Stakeholders Engagement session. Thank you for joining us and for taking the time to contribute to the development and refinement of the MRC ESG Guidelines in two-pack for the Malaysian rubber sector. In the opening session, we are presenting the simple idea that ESG should not be treated as a burden or a one-off reporting exercise. It should be a practical way for companies to understand their impact, manage risk, and keep proper evidence, communicate honestly, and improve year by year. The statement at the bottom of this slide captures the message clearly. ESG means knowing the company's impact, managing the risk, keeping evidence, reporting honestly, and improving every year. That is the spirit of these guidelines. They are designed not just for companies that are already advanced, but also for companies that are only beginning their ESG journey. Today, we will walk through the logic of the MRC ESG Navigator, what it is, who it is for, how the tools are structured, and how companies can use them depending on their maturity level. Many companies hear the word ESG and immediately think of compliance, long documents, complicated questionnaires, buy demands, and static checklists. That is what we are calling the compliance trap. It happens when ESG becomes a heavy, one-size-fits-all requirement that companies only respond to when a buyer, regulator, financier, or auditor asks for information. The MRC approach is different. Instead of giving companies a single monolithic requirement, this two-pack is designed as an interactive toolkit. It is scalable. It allows companies to choose the right starting point. It provides modular tools. Most importantly, it is built around continuous improvement. This matters because companies in the rubber sector are not all at the same stage. Some are SMEs, just starting to organize their ESG records. Some already respond to customer questionnaires, while others are preparing for sustainability reporting, supplier due diligence, EUDR-related traceability, or carbon data requests. So the key message is the guideline meets companies where they are. The objective is not to overwhelm users, but to help them take the next credible step. This slide reminds us that ESG is not the same for every company. ESG relevance depends heavily on where the company sits in the rubber value chain. For upstream sourcing, the key issues may include deforestation risk, land legality, smallholder traceability, MSNR alignment, and geolocation records. For midstream processing, the key issues often move closer to operational performance, such as energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, wastewater, chemical handling, occupational health and safety, and schedule waste. For downstream manufacturing, the focus may include product carbon footprint, worker welfare, migrant worker management, customer ESG requirement, and alignment with international due diligence expectations. This is why the guidelines are not designed to force every company to report on everything equally. Instead, each company should understand its own business model, value chain roles, risks, impacts, and stakeholder expectations. The practical message for participations is start with relevance. Before reporting, before setting targets, before answering questionnaires, first ask, which ESG topics are actually material to my company? The navigator then organizes ESG into a clear set of topics across three ESG pillars: environmental, social, and governance. Under environment, we see topics such as deforestation, sustainable land use, biodiversity, emissions, material use, hazardous substance, energy, soil health, water and waste. On the social, we see human rights, diversity and inclusion, workers' rights, occupational health and safety, child labor, forced labor, indigenous peoples, local communities, freedom of association, training, and pay. Under governance, the topics include traceability, corporate governance, ethics, transparency and risk, tax, corporate engagement, anti-corruption, stakeholder engagement, and regulatory risk. A very important point is shown on the slide. Companies only activate and report on topics that are material to their operations. That means a company should not simply tick every box or produce generic ESG statements. Instead, it should screen the topics, decide what is direct, indirect, customer triggered, regulatory triggered, not applicable, or under review, and then focus effort where it matters most. This is the foundation of a practical ESG system: material topics, clear responsibilities, proper evidence, and improvement action. This slide shows the core operating logic of the guidelines: develop, report, track, repeat. The develop stage, companies set up responsibilities, identify material topics, and create policies. This is supported by tools such as the Company Profile Tool, Applicability Matrix, and Materiality Worksheet. At the report stage, companies collect data and evidence, define boundaries, and prepare disclosures. This is supported by the Evidence Register and ESG reporting template. At the track stage, companies check their status, gaps, and corrective actions using tools such as the checklist and action plan. At the repeat stage, companies review material topics, update policies, set new targets, and continue improving. This includes supplier due diligence and roadmap building. The key point is that ESG is not completed once a report is written. ESG is a cycle. Every year, companies should become clearer, more evidence-based, more prepared for customer, regulatory, financing, and market expectations. The toolpack recognizes three maturity levels: core, progressive, and leading. Core companies are building the foundation. They may have basic awareness, some compliance checks, policies, or records, but implementation is still informal or incomplete. Progressive companies are managing and monitoring. They have assigned responsibilities, collected evidence, implemented key controls, and started monitoring performance across material topics. Leading companies are verification ready. They have stronger governance, reliable data monitored by KPIs, evidence-backed reporting, and more advanced supplier due diligence. This maturity structure is important because it prevents ESG from becoming unrealistic. A company that is just starting does not need to behave like a multinational reporting entity on day one. But it does need to start with credible basics: ownership, evidence, data, materiality, and action plans. This slide explains that the maturity is not just about ambition. It is about evidence, governance, and actual implementation. A company is generally considered core if the final maturity score is below 2.75. Evidence is available for less than 50% of topics, or no formal ESG has been assigned. A progressive company generally scores between 2.75 and 3.99, has evidence for more than 50% of topics, and has assigned ESG roles and data owners. A leading company generally scores between 4 and 5, has evidence for more than 80% of topics, and has a senior management or board level review. The red box at the bottom is especially important. A single unresolved critical matter can override the maturity score. For example, a severe legal non-compliance or unsupported public ESG claims that can prevent a company from being treated as leading. So the message is, do not overclaim. ESG credibility depends on evidence. Only say what the company can support. We now show how the tool pack is structured. At the base, we have the universal tool, company profile, applicability matrix, materiality worksheet, evidence register, action plan, and data ownership matrix. These tools are useful for almost every company. Then there are maturity-specific tools. For core users, the key tool is the 30, 60, 90-day starter plan. For progressive users, the key tool is the ESG reporting template. For leading users, the key tool is the roadmap builder. There are also specialty tools, the maturity self-assessment, supply due diligence form, and GHG calculator. This architecture is designed to make ESG manageable. Companies do not need to open every tool at once. They should open the tool that matches their immediate need. If they are new to ESG, start with the profile and the 90-day plan. If they need a report, use the materiality and reporting tools. If they face supply traceability requests, use the supply due diligence tool. If they need targets and strategy, use the maturity assessment and roadmap builder. For core users, the recommended starting point is the 30, 60, 90-day starter plan. In the first 30 days, the company should build the base, appoint an ESG focal point, define the reporting boundary, collect basic 12-month data, and sign a simple ESG commitment statement. By day 60, the company should prioritize. This means completing the 29 topic screen, creating an ESG gap register, and starting supplier screening from priority suppliers. By day 90, the company should lock in the routine, close urgent gaps, create the first ESG evidence pack, and approve 6-month improvement plan. The key message to core users is this: do not wait for perfection. Start with a practical foundation, assign ownership, collect records, identify gaps, and agree on the next action. By day 90, companies should be able to say, we know our ESG topics, we know our gaps, we have basic evidence, and we have a plan to improve. For progressive users, the focus is evidence and reporting. The featured tools are Evidence Register and the ESG reporting template. The most important principle here is shown clearly. You only say what the company can support with evidence. For every material topic, the company should be able to point to records. For example, utility bills for energy and emissions, payroll samples for labor practices, origin records for traceability, training records for social topics, and management approvals for disclosures. Before release, the company should check 5 things. The reporting boundary is defined, data is supported by evidence, omissions are explained, data owners have reviewed the information, and management has approved the disclosure. This is how companies avoid weak or risky ESG reporting. A short, balanced, evidence-backed disclosure is better than a polished report full of unsupported claims. For leading users, the focus shifts from basic implementation to strategy, targets, and multi-year planning. The featured tool is the Roadmap Builder. In phase 1, covering 0 to 6 months, the companies confirm baselines, assign the RASI responsibilities, and budget resources. In phase 2, from 6 to 18 months, the company sets smart targets, launches KPI dashboards, and executes supply traceability controls. In phase 3, from 18 months onwards, the company delivers low carbon transition investments, implements Scope 3 screenings, and prepares for external verification. The message here is that leading practice requires discipline. Targets should not be vague. Every target should have a baseline, a KPI, an owner, resources, evidence, and review dates. Leading companies are not just reporting ESG, they are integrating ESG into business planning, investment decisions, supply management, and market strategy. Now we look at the governance structure needed to make ESG work. At the top, the board or owner approves ESG direction, material topic, major targets, and public disclosures. Next, senior management or ESG committee reviews risks, data, performance, stakeholder issues, and corrective actions. The ESG leads coordinates implementation, checklist updates, and data collection. Department heads such as HR, EHS, procurement, production, finance, and compliance implement the actual controls. Finally, data owners collect, check, and maintain raw evidence such as utility bills, payroll records, safety records, supplier files, and production data. The key point is that ESG cannot sit with one person alone. Even if one person coordinates ESG, the evidence comes from across the company. Good governance means clear ownership, clear review, and clear approval. We look at how the MRC 12 Part 2 pack helps companies bridge different ESG frameworks and expectations. For example, NSRF and IFRS S2 expectations are supported by governance structures, Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions data, and climate risk assessments. The MITI IESG expectations are supported by resource efficiency tracking, capacity building, and manufacturing performance KPIs. EUDR and CSDDD expectations are supported by supplier due diligence, geolocation data, human rights considerations, and supply chain traceability. TCFD expectations are supported by climate governance, transition planning, and energy intensity targets. The practical message is important. Companies do not need to start from separate systems for every framework. If they complete the MRC interactive loop properly, they will begin closing data gaps that are relevant to multiple frameworks at the same time. That is the value of a structured ESG system. One good evidence base can support multiple customer reporting, financing, and regulatory needs. ESG also depends on data maturity. At the lowest level, companies may rely on manual spreadsheets and paper receipts. That is acceptable at the starting point, as long as records are organized and reviewable. The next step is standardized files, version-controlled documents, and shared evidence folder. Then companies may move to dashboards and cloud-based data collection. More mature companies may integrate ESG data with ERP, HR, and procurement systems. At the highest level, company may use advanced ESG platforms with automated reporting, supplier portals, and digital traceability. The message here is not that every company must immediately buy a digital ESG system. The message is that ESG data should improve over time. Start with reliable files, then standardize, then automate where it adds value. The goal is to move from scattered evidence to controlled, reviewable, decision-useful data. Finally, it brings us back to practical action. If you are new to ESG, open tool 1, company profile, and tool 7, the 90-day plan. If you need an ESG report, open tool 4, the materiality worksheet, and tool 11, the reporting template. If a buyer asks for EUDR or traceability, open tool 9, the supplier due diligence tool. If you need targets and strategy, open tool 02, the maturity assessment, and tool 12, the roadmap builder. The closing message is simple. If your ESG journey is modular, select your tools. Build your foundation. The stakeholder engagement targets not only presenting a finished product, we are inviting your feedback. We want to know whether the guidelines are practical, whether the tools are clear, whether the language works for industry users, and whether pathway reflects the real situation faced by rubber processors and manufacturers in Malaysia. So as we move into the engagement session, I encourage everyone to think from the perspective of actual use. Can a company understand where to start? Can an SME use the tools without being overwhelmed? Can a manufacturer respond better to customer ESG requests? Can the sector build better evidence, better reporting, and better competitiveness? That is the purpose of the Navigator. Thank you, and we look forward to your active feedback and discussion. With that overview, we will move to the next part, and we hope to receive your feedback on the guideline and tool in more details. And we will gather your feedback and use them to strengthen the MRC ESG guidelines. Thank you.